jumping back to this visualization, final bits is I want this flower graphic to appear whenever I hover over the data points here. So it's going to be similar to this example, where it will appear and the size will be determined by the character counts. So this would apply to you if you have kind of complex shapes that you want to play with. If you know, every time every time I have a text message, I want it to create a flower for me, or if I, you know, every time I travel, I want it to be reflected as a tree, or whatever ideas and data viz projects that you have. Yeah, you might apply it in totally different ways. It might not be flowers, it might not be trees, it could be so many other different P5 artistic shapes that you might be working on. But yeah, so it's the concept of how can we kind of package all of this up and transfer it into a visualization. And so when you have those kinds of project ideas, it's always good to start like this. So start with basic shapes, like throw in basic shapes and slot them into where those graphics would appear in your data visualization, because then what you can do is you can simply replace those shapes with these graphics. So how will I transfer this flower over to my visualization? What I'm going to be doing is putting it into my code as its own function. And so you can refer back to module 3 if you need a refresher on how creating custom functions work. So firstly, I'll give my sketch function maybe like, what do I call it? Like maybe flower, capital F, open close brackets, open and close curly brackets. And then I'm just going to find what I need to I'm going to find everything I need to migrate over. Just do the flower. I don't need the background because the background is specific to the sketch. So I just need everything from kind of that stroke color, stroke weight, all the way to kind of, so this is the shape that begins and ends, is kind of, this is where the actual flower shape is being drawn, and these are kind of just like settings of the flower. So I might just copy that, paste it here. All right, and so I've pasted that over. And then what I'll also do is put in a push and a pop at the start and end of this function, so that everything, like if I've got translate, if I've got any command that might accumulate inside this function, it can just stay within that and not like be, what am I saying? Like not be transferred over to the other shapes. I also did just realize that I still have this flower size variable in there, which obviously doesn't exist in the sketch. So I'm just going to give it a set 50 for now, and we can always customize that later. I'll just try calling it maybe and see what happens. So if I go into my draw function, just above background, how you call the function that you've created is basically just typing in their function name. So I'll go flower, open close brackets, like that. Does it have a color? Yes, it does. Okay, great. Let's see. Let's just see. Okay, so I've got a flower there. Great. So the graphic is working. So now, what if I want this flower to only appear here when my mouse is hovering over a dot? And so that way I would place this flower into that if statement, this distance if statement. And maybe I'll just place it, I wonder if I should place it within the push and pop or outside of the push and pop, but let's just try it. Okay, so it's working. So it's triggering the flower to appear where I want it to appear. Now, the thing about this is there are some aspects of the flower that we would like to customize. Firstly, we want it to appear where these dots are, right? So not at the center of this canvas, but in our example, we wanted it to kind of like, it's attached to each dot. We'll have to customize the position of that flower. Second, we'll also have to customize the color of that flower, right? Because it's so like in this example, it's green on the green column and purple on the purple column and all of that. And so the color. And thirdly, the size. So the size has to also reflect the character count, and so the size of these circles, the flower also has to reflect in the radius of the actual flower. And so the handy thing is that we've already annotated that in our flower sketch. It's as if we knew what was coming. Okay, so I've got the color and I've got the position and I've got the size of the flower. And coming back, same thing as what we did in module 3, we're going to set these into customizable variables or parameters that will go inside the brackets of this flower function, so that every time we call the flower function, we'll need to have that information. So firstly, let's start with maybe the position of the flower. So here we have it at width divided by 2, height divided by 2. That's why the flower is appearing at the center of the canvas. And so I'll just name this flower X and flower Y. And so then I'll need to place it, because I'm not defining how much is flower X and how much is flower Y. I'm going to place it in my brackets instead as parameters. And so that means every time that I call the flower function in my draw function, I need to specify these two numbers. So it's like when you want to call a circle, right? When you want to call a circle, you need the X position and the Y position and the size of that circle. The difference is that a circle is the circle command here, the circle function is built inside the p5.js library, and so it already knows what to draw as long as you give it enough information. And so this is we're replicating the exact same thing. We are storing a set of tasks and a set of commands for it to draw what we want to draw, and we can call that function as long as we give it the information that it needs. So I'll say I'll have to put in an X and a Y value here, right? To specify where I want my flower to be drawn. And I want my flower to be drawn on the dots. And so that means I can follow the X position and Y position of the dots, of the circles. So I'll try that for now. X position, Y position. Okay, I've saved that. I will refresh this. Great, and so now we've got the flower appearing at every dot instead of the center. So if I want another flower that's still at the center of my canvas, right, that still appears at the center of my canvas, so I've got like 2 sets of flowers now, I can still do that. And so then I'll have them both in both places. So what I'm trying to say is that you can call this flower function and place it wherever you want, same way that you would draw a basic shape. And then we can also customize the size of that flower. And we'll get to color last. So size of the flower is, so that was this, so 50. I'll make this flower size again and call this flower size. And so that means X position, Y position, I now need to give it a size. And the size that I want will be determined by, it will be reflective of the sizes of the circles, right? And the sizes of these circles are so informed by the character count. So maybe if these circles are character count times 2, maybe I can make it character count times, maybe times 4. And we'll see what happens then. So I'll save this. I'll refresh this again. And so now we should have the flowers going smaller or bigger, reflective of each circle, which is great. And so the color here is set here. You can either do it as RGB values, or because we kind of put in our viz colors, just because in this specific example, I've put in like hex codes here as the viz colors, and those are the colors that I want my flower to be. So if I just put in color and then just give it that variable flower color, and then I'll copy and paste this into the fourth value that I need to put in. And so now, this is basically saying that, okay, whatever goes into these brackets is a color value. And so flower color, and that means I'm going to need to place it in this kind of as the fourth value in these brackets, right? And to do that, I will need to link it to, so this is going to be really interesting. I'm gonna have to link it to this. This is the thing that's coloring my dots to make it look like that. So let's see, let's just see if this works. I'm just gonna copy and paste this. I have a feeling that it's gonna be a little bit more iffy than this, but let's just try it. Okay, do that, run this. Okay. So, this is interesting. So the flowers are showing a color that is after that goes after that. So what that tells me is that the color index is lagging. So we need to find a way to maybe like decrease that or increase that. So I'm wondering if it's just a matter of placing -1 to make sure that the index, like the color that it's selecting, is aligned with the color that the dots are selecting. And honestly, this is only because we've got a mechanism here where the color index adds by 1, and that's so that it can move through this color palette that we talked about in previous videos. And so I think that's why it's picking up the color index after it. But we want it to stay the same color index as the one before it. So anyway, so yeah, I'll just put in like -1 to see if it can kind of set us back so that the colors can align with the dots. And the colors align with the dots. Amazing. So yay. So that's basically our sketch finished. And so now you've got your text. Actually, I'm not a fan of like how the text is being. Maybe I'll place the text like mouse X plus 100, and let's see. Maybe I can put it like width divided by 18. And so then it's just nicely in the center of each column, which is great. So yeah, so hopefully that illustrates for you how you can place in really complex, more complex objects and shapes and sketches into your existing visualization. Change around the styles and the values attached with that shape, and call it depending on specific triggers or specific scenarios in your code. So that's going to be really exciting. I can't wait to see what all of you make. If you liked this tutorial, or if you want to give us more feedback on how we can make this resource and make these tutorials better, there is a feedback form that you can fill out in the description below. And if you ever want to share your work or reach out for support or reach out for help, please join our Discord community. That's where we all kind of just gather and do a lot of activities over the weekends and share our work. So I hope to see you there. But thanks so much for following through this module 5. And yeah, best of luck with your projects.